Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so let's stop recording. But anyway, so we have R strategy and K strategy. The R strategy, lots of individuals but no parental care. I remember for rejection. K strategy, low number of offspring but high parental care. I always think K strategy is for care. Okay, yes, it's a C, but you know what I mean. Okay, so it's the K strategy, the care strategy. All right, and then in this strategy, we see that we have a very low mortality rate. The offspring survive, okay, they don't die, and we have a low mortality rate. So in these ones, in our R strategy, we have a high mortality rate. In our K strategy, we have a low mortality rate. Okay, any questions, guys? Okay, so those are your inherent abilities. That's kind of like what your own species kind of controls. So you can control your natality, your mortality, and you would control whether you migrate or not, okay, or immigrate or immigrate, okay. However, those are not the only things. Thank you, Sean, because you kept saying something else can affect the population. What did you keep saying? Resources, absolutely. I wasn't ignoring you. Of course, resources can affect the population, but we were talking about things that the population is basically controlling. Now we're going to look at how resources relate to a population increasing or a population decreasing. Okay? And we're going to look at how we have population fluctuation and regulation within an environment based on the availability of the resources. That's today's lesson. Got it? Yes. Okay, so let's get into today's lesson. Right, so as we said, or as Sean kept saying, resources can affect the population size. If there's an abundance of resources, what's going to happen to the population? The population is going to increase. There's lots of food, lots of water, lots of space, lots of happiness. Populations are happy, increasing. If there's a drop in the resources, what's going to happen to the population? It's going to decrease. Okay? And now that is referred to as carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is the amount of individuals a specific environment can sustain and maintain. The carrying capacity is dependent on resources. So carrying capacity, a population does not increase indefinitely. At some point, the habitat will not be able to support an increasing population size. Resources are limited. The population at which the environment cannot support any further increase is referred to as the carrying capacity. And so what we see, grade 11s, is we would have, for example, this is time, this is population size. Population size. We have a measure that is referred to as our carrying capacity. Carrying. How much can the environment carry? That's what that means. What is the capacity, the number of individuals that the environment can sustain? The carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is the number of individuals that specific environment can sustain. Now, the population numbers have to fluctuate within this carrying capacity. In other words, they will increase maybe when times are good, but they will drop, and then they will increase, and then they will drop, and then they will increase, and then they will drop. But they remain in this kind of zone. Okay, so when times are good, there will be an increase in the population size, up to a point, because at some point the resources are going to lower, and then they can drop. Now, what potentially can happen is there can be some kind of change. Let's say at this particular point, there is a change that takes place. That change could be seasonal change. It could be a natural disaster. It could be something outside of the population's control. And what that change does is it will drop our carrying capacity. Do you see that? Why? Because of whatever reason. And therefore, the population has to drop as well within the carrying capacity. And so what we see is that if there is a change, we will see a drastic drop in the population size. As I said, that change could be a volcanic eruption, it could be a flood, it could be a drought. It could be seasonal changes. It could be human impact. Humans move in. We mess things up. We take away habitat. The carrying capacity is influenced, and the population size, done in green, must drop down in order to be in the population carrying capacity. No environment can sustain a population at this point if the resources are at that point. That makes sense. If I only have 10 hamburgers, how many people can I feed? 10 people. If I have 20 people, what's going to happen? Well, 50% of them are going hungry. Okay. Either you will die, or you have to emigrate out. Okay, absolutely. I prefer emigrate, isn't that lovely? Emigrate. You move out of that area because the population cannot be sustained in that specific location. Any questions? Okay, so a population in which the environment cannot support any further increase in its numbers is referred to as the carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is determined by the availability of resources. If any resource is in short supply, so let's say there's plenty water, or there's plenty space, or there could be plenty food, but there's not enough of something else, okay? So let's say in the case of a drought, okay, plenty space. Space is not a problem. What is a problem? Food and water, okay? So what is, because remember, resources are not just food and water, it's also space and competition and all sorts of things, okay? So habitat size, etc. So that specific factor that could limit or decrease our carrying capacity is referred to as our limiting factor. What is the limiting factor in the case of a drought? Obviously, availability of water. It's not space or gases or toxins or anything like that. Right, so any resource, said that, carrying capacity may vary with seasons and years. So carrying capacity, let's say we have a sudden change, that change can drop or lower the carrying capacity. We could also have another change that takes place over here. Suddenly the rains come back, we have lots of rainfall, we have lots of food, we have lots of increase, and our carrying capacity increases up to there. What will happen to our population size? Our population size will increase and then it will chill there. So there will be a drastic increase in the population. Why? Because we have more resources. And those resources could be based on any number of reasons. Why we have an increase or a decrease in the resource. Okay. That. Clear. Okay, these two definitions, just make sure you've written them down. Okay, what is this person doing? Relax. What you doing, Sean? Okay, right, please make sure you've written this down. The population regulation and stability. If the carrying capacity of a habitat drops below the population size at any given time, mortality and or migration must increase. The population falls back into the new carrying capacity. The tendency of a population to return to its equilibrium size is referred to as population regulation. The tendency of a population to remain at that constant size is referred to as population stability. Biological terms here, guys. Do you see them? So there's a term referred to as population regulation, that's getting it back into its carrying capacity. And then population stability, staying in that carrying capacity. Yes, it might decrease or increase a little bit, but it stays within that carrying capacity. Happy? Okay, so you guys are drawing or writing. You guys at home are also writing. Should we need to go to the bathroom? I'm going to pause, I'm going to stop the video.